Welcome back everybody. I know it's been a little while since our last video, but I've been travelling up and down the country delivering training to companies like Jaguar Land Rover and Aston Martin's over in Wales and over in Solihull quite a bit. Not only that, but I also got married last October, so I spent some time with the wife and travelling over to America for our honeymoon. But thanks to the Easter holidays, I'm back for a little bit and I've got some time to put together some videos for yourselves. And what we're going to have a look at today is we're going to have a look at HMIs once again. Now, we've looked at HMIs before, but we looked at HMIs with WinCC, with Siemens. The biggest problem with that is the software. It costs money. So if you want to be trying this out yourselves, you're going to have to try and get access to TIA Portal, which isn't the cheapest of things. However, what we also looked at previously is CODESYS, and we looked at CODESYS for developing PLC programs. Now, CODESYS we can also use to develop HMI projects. Just to give you a bit of a rundown what an HMI is, HMIs are pretty much one of the most commonplace tools on the shop floors alongside PLCs. Back before HMIs, the way we used to work with control systems was you had your PLC and you had your control panel, and that control panel would be filled with all sorts of instrumentation, such as push buttons, switches, gauges, and information screens from there as well. However, what we want to try and do is get rid of all of that information on these panels and put together all of this information on an HMI screen, HMI standing for Human Machine Interface. And this is effectively what links the operator or the engineers on the shop floor to the PLC without needing to go inside the PLC program. It's more for feedback and a little bit for control as well, but it's mainly that link between the actual human side of things and the PLC side of things, or the machine itself, Human Machine Interface. So what we're going to do with this video here is we're going to go into CODESYS, and we're using CODESYS version 3.5 Service Pack 19. On the previous projects it was Service Pack 18, but they released a new one. We're then going to create a new project. We're going to create a basic PLC program just to switch something on and off, and then what we'll do is we'll create an HMI project. We'll show you a little bit of the setup, a little bit of the toolbox that you can use to create your visualizations with, and then what we'll do is we'll start linking some of our objects to those tags. And then we'll show you how these can work in interface. We'll show you the simulator with the HMI, and then we'll wrap this video up. On later on videos, what we'll look at doing is maybe creating a bit more in-depth projects and having a look at other tools in CODESYS and putting together a project. And see how we can create a project inside the PLC side, and then also on the HMI, and link it all together and show you how we can work it with the simulator. Right, let's get started. So I've got CODESYS here. What I want to do is just create a new project. Now it'll pop up here, projects. You also have your libraries over here. I'm just going to go straight to projects. You can create an empty project, and we can create an HMI project, but what we'll do is we'll go with the standard project, and I'll give it a name, Chris HMI, and we'll just say OK to that. Our project will then appear, and it'll ask you what do you want to create the PLC program in. We're going to use LadderLogic now. On future videos, what I might be doing is showing you some of these other languages as well, such as FBD, such as SFC, and such as structured text as well, and getting into those languages and showing you the differences between LadderLogic and those languages there. But for now, let's create it in LadderLogic and say OK to that. And then what we'll see on the left hand side is our project appear, and there it is there. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to double click the PLC program, and we're going to create a basic program. Now all this program is going to be is just having a contact go into a coil. So if I just click inside of here, and if I open up my ladder elements and I grab my normally open contact and just drop it there, grab my coil and just drop it there. And then what we'll do is we'll type in here start PB, and it's going to ask you to declare this variable. So we're going to leave it as start PB, we're going to leave it as boolean and say OK to that. Then what we'll do is we'll create another element, and we'll call this lamp, and we'll say OK to that. So when we've done this, what I then want to do is I want to create the HMI side of things. So to do this, what we want to do is over here on the left hand side where our project tree is, you'll see application, and there's our PLC side of things. I want to right click application, go to add object, and then select down here visualization. So let's click on that. Now when visualization pops up, it does give you an option to add a symbol library, and the symbol library by default that they've got here is Visu Symbols, and what we're going to do is we're just going to click on activate and add. And now our PLC project is going to add our HMI to this as well. And there we go. So here's our visualization. Now, when we popped up that little dialog box when we went to create our HMI, it was asking you about adding a symbol library. You don't have to do that, but what this is ultimately looking at is just on the right hand side, you'll see your visualization toolbox. These are the tools that we can use to create our project within a side of our HMI. And inside of there, you'll see a little tab there called symbols. If you click that, these here are symbols created by CODESYS that we can then use inside of our project. Now you could use these for creating little buttons, you could use these for little icons to show you what you're looking at effectively on the shop floor. But what we're going to do is we're just going to leave these for now. If we uncheck that, you just wouldn't have this symbols tab. We're going to have this here because we might want to add these later on in our further projects. But on the right hand side, we've got this visualization toolbox. Note, sometimes when you do this for the first time, it opens up in the toolbox tab down the right hand side. So if you look down the right hand side of CODESYS, my video's blocking that for now, but there'll be 3 tabs. One of them is toolbox. Just make sure you're in visualization toolbox and you will see here the different elements for your visualization side of things. Now if you go to basic, you'll just see some basic elements like lines, curves. You'll see things like rectangles, circles, etc. You can also add images inside of here too. If you go to common controls, you've got your common controls here like radio buttons where you can check buttons. You've got sliders, checkboxes, etc. You got your alarm management, etc. But what I want to do is I want to go through to lamps, switches and bitmaps. And inside of here, what you'll notice is you've got a lamp. Now I want to drag my lamp in because if you remember in our PLC program just over here, if I double click that, I've got a lamp that I want to control. So let's go back to our visualization. And here's our lamp. Now when you do this and you click on lamp, what you'll notice is down at the right hand side again where my camera's covering, you got your toolbox, you got your visualization toolbar, and then you got your properties toolbar. It'll automatically open up this properties toolbar where you can edit certain things. So for example, we can edit the X position, we can edit the Y position, whereabouts it is on the screen. So if I change that Y position to 300, you'll see that drop down a few pixels. If I change the width to 80, you'll see that the box itself has grown a little bit, but what you'll notice is the actual icon hasn't changed. However, if I do change the height to 80, that'll then change the actual display of the image itself. And what that is, it's basically a fixed image at a fixed ratio of 1:1. So if I change that to 90, that ratio is no longer 1:1. So what it's not going to do, it's not going to stretch that image. So if I wanted to make it both 90 to 90 and actually have that image larger, I have to type in 90 on the height over here. So otherwise you can actually just use these anchor points and drag these anchor points. And as you can see, if I move it across here, nothing's sort of stretching. If I move it down here, nothing's stretching. It's just going to move it in this sort of linear scale on this 1:1 scale. So what I'll do is when I've dropped this, you'll notice that it's gotten a bit of an odd width here. Let's just change this back to 100 by 100. And that's it for now. If we go back to our visualization toolbar, that's it. So now what I want to do is I want to grab our button, and our button isn't inside of lamps, switches and bitmaps, it's inside of the common controls. So if we click on the common controls, you'll then see button. Now what we'll do is we'll drag that button into place, and there's our button. And it doesn't look so fancy, there's actually no text in there or anything like that. Now what we can do is we can edit all of this information again via this properties window if we wanted to. If we look at this properties window, you've got your width and you've got your height. If I change this width to, let's say, 150, and I change the height to, let's say, 75. I like nice roundish numbers and working up in intervals of 5 here. That's more so for my side of things. You'll also notice, if I just get rid of the position in the center, if I open there, texts, and inside of there you got your text display, and this is what's going to be displaying on the button itself. So if I type in here start PB and just press enter, you'll then notice here start PB displays inside of the button. And what you can also do is we can click inside of here and change the name from here too. Now, what if I want to change the properties of this text? I want to make the text a little bit larger, I want to make it smaller, I want to change the font. Well, again, if I click on the button and I go to text properties, if I click on text properties, Inside of here, I can change where it is, so I can change it from centered to left or to right, or I can change the vertical to bottom or top, but usually we want to keep these things centered. It looks nice and neat that way. And then we've got here font and font color. If I just double click on font, I can then drop this down and I can change the sort of style of font that I've got, my headline, my large headline, etc. But what I want to do here is I want to have a look inside of the font color button, and here I can change elements like the actual font color itself as well, so I can get into here and I can do all of that. Now if you go over here, you'll see these 3 dots in the button. If I click on that, there I can access all sorts of other colors. So if I just check this pink here, or this sort of coral color, and just say okay to that, you'll notice that now changes to that pink coral color. If I want to just change that back to sort of a darkish grey, I can do that, and now I've got this darkish grey available to me there. And if we go to font color and expand that, you've also got your transparency, so we can actually change the transparency of this. Now if I want to change the font face, and I don't want to just use this drop down menu here where I can change it to like headline, or I can change it to large or whatever, and I want to give it a bit more individuality, I want to change the actual font itself. Let's go back to default, and you'll see go back to that small size. If I click on font, I double click in that area, you'll see that drop down appear, but again, similar to font color, you'll see these 3 dots appear. If I click on those 3 dots, there I have access to the fonts, and these are the fonts that are very similar to Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, etc. So you can change the fonts here. Now what we could do is if I go down to Calibri, I can then click on Calibri. I can then change the font style, so I can make it bold if I wanted to, and I can change the font size so I can make it 16. I can also add things like strikeouts, so lines through the text, or I can add underlines as well. I'm going to uncheck those. I'm just going to say okay to that, and now you can see the start PB is a little bit more prominent on the actual push button itself. Now looking at this, I'm looking at start PB. We probably don't need to actually use the words PB here because it's an actual button, and we can see that from there. So there we go, I've got my button and I've got my lamp. Now what I can't do here is I can't just save and then go to our HMI simulator and just test this out. What I need to do is I need to tag up these elements. I need to let the HMI know what information it's using. So if I go to the lamp, for example, if I go to the lamp and then I go to... If I go to the lamp and I go to variable over here where it's got position, it's got variable as its next heading. If I then just check the box on this one here, I've then got options where I can access these variables from. Now I want to access the variable from my application itself. So I'm going to open up application, and you'll notice there's my PLC program, and that's where I've actually created this tag. If I open up PLC program, there's my lamp, there's my start push button. What I want to do here is I want to click on the lamp and I want to say OK to that. So now what I can do is I've tied this to my lamp, and I can now have this change color. So I can have this change color depending upon what sort of colors I want to actually use for this. If I go back to my start push button, what I can then do is if I go and choose its element as well. If I go to properties and I scroll down, you can see here input configuration, and this is configure all possible inputs to this element. So if I open that up here, you've got different types of variations here. If I just expand this properties at the top, on dialog closed, on mouse click, on mouse down, on mouse enter, etc. If I look down here though, you'll see toggle. If I go to toggle and I go to variable, I can then click on this again, and this time I can select our start push button and I can say OK to that. So what I've done here is I've assigned this to my toggle variable, and what the toggle variable does essentially is this is a variable that will be toggled between true and false. So when you click the button once, it'll switch it on, so it'll switch it to true. When I click the button again, it'll switch it to false. Click it again, it'll switch it to true. So I've done that there. What I want to do now is I want to just line these things up. So keep it a little bit neat. I'm not going to go too much into the HMI visualization of making things perfect just yet. That'll be later on when we actually create our project. But what I want to do is I want to keep these things sort of centered together. So if we were looking at this on a panel, you wouldn't have your button up here and your lamp down here and these things corresponding to each other. You'd have them sort of level. Now what you could do is you could click on the properties and try and make the X and Y's on both of these the same. An easy way of doing this is just clicking on the button, clicking on the lamp, and then right clicking and go into alignment. And then here you're going to align horizontal center. And if I click on that, you'll see these things line up from here. So now I'm ready to test these things out. So to do this, let's just save our work. And I want to go through to online. And then I want to go through to simulation and check the box there. Drop down on online and click on log in. This is now going to ask you, do you want to download this to the simulator just like before? So we'll say yes to that. And there we go. So we're ready. The online visualization is waiting for a connection. Please start the application. So what I've got to do is I've got to start the PLC so it can see an actual connection there. So remember, our start push button is just up here. F5, click on start. There's our start and there's our lamp. So if you remember, on our PLC program side of things, we've got our start going to our lamp. And over here on the visualization side of things, you got your start going to your lamp. If I click the start push button once, lamp will turn on. If I click it again, lamp will turn off. Click it again, lamp will turn on. Click it again, lamp will turn off. Now what I can do is I can just pop this thing out. So drag the PLC program to the side. So now we can actually see the PLC program working at the same time. Press the start once. There's the lamp on. There's the start push button on, and there's our lamp on. Turn that again, and it switches it off. And what I can then do is I can then double click the start PB, and it should then pop up with true. I can then right click and write all values, and there we go. There's my start PB on, lamp is on, and there's my lamp. And then if I double click that and switch it to false, right click and write all values. There we go there. So I can actually activate it from the program and test things out. What you might notice as well, by the way, is when I'm clicking the start PB, the actual text for the start lights up as well. So this is configurable too. So we can actually change the color of this. You'll notice that the button also changes state as well. So it'll go from a dark gray to like a light gray, sort of showing that the button has been pressed, so to speak. So that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Let's close that down. Let's stop that. And let's go back to our web visualization and let's log off. Okay, so inside of our visualization over here, you'll notice though, the way this has been working is you press the start once and the lamp turns on, you press the start again and the lamp turns off. That's not necessarily the method of a start push button. You don't press the start once and then press the start again. That would be more of a method of a start stop push button. So if I want to get this button to activate the lamp when I press it down and then deactivate the lamp when I press it up, what we can do is, similar to Siemens, we can use the down and up variation of the mouse click itself. So here you'll see on mouse down. If I go to configure, I can then, same thing, toggle variable and then add that in, and then where you see the three dots, click on start PB and then say OK to that. I can then go to on mouse up, toggle variable, three dots, start PB, say OK to that. And now when I press the mouse down, it's going to toggle the output and toggle the input on. When I let the mouse go, it's going to toggle the input off, effectively acting like an actual push button that's going straight to my lamp. So now if I just save my work, click on log in with online change, and then I can start it up. Oh, it's already started up, great. So here when I press the start push button, lamp will turn on. When I let go of the push button, lamp will then turn off. Now it's acting like a proper push button. So if I just drag this PLC program out, now when I press the start push button, let go, now it acts like a proper push button. Great. So then how do I latch this thing on? Similar to when I pressed the start push button before, the output turned on. Well, again, you can do this via the HMI, but you very rarely want the HMI to operate things. The HMI isn't for control of a process, so to speak. It doesn't latch outputs on or latch outputs or unlatch outputs. That's through the PLC program. So what I would then do is I would go back to the PLC program. If I just log out, get back to the PLC program, put in a branch, go to my ladder elements and put in a parallel contact just there, and type in my lamp like so. Then I want to get my negated contact and put that just after. Whoops. Put that just after, there we go, and tie this to my stop PB. So we create the latch inside of the PLC program. We don't have the HMI latching the output on and latching the output off. What we should be able to do is remove that HMI and still be able to control things through the PLC program should it need to be that way. But we have all of that control through the PLC itself. If I then go back to the visualization, all I would then do is I would click this button, copy and paste it, and again I can then line these things up together by just right clicking, alignment, align vertical, and then where I see this I can then change this to stop. Go over here, there's the program for my start push button. So I'm going to use my stop push button like so, save my work, log in with online change. Right, so it just popped up saying I had a couple of errors. What had happened was when I went into here and I clicked on the three dots, what it had done is it just added the stop right after this variable here. So what I can do is I can just go to that part, backspace that out, go to this part, and then backspace the start push button out. So I'm just left with the stop PB. Save that. Now I can log in with online change. No errors, that's good. And then I can test this part out. Okay, start things up. Press the start push button, output latches on, press the start push button, output on latches, drag my PLC program to the right hand side, press the start, there's my latch, press the stop, there's my unlatch. So that there is using these push buttons just like an actual push button on a physical panel going to a lamp, and I'm latching it on via the PLC program, but all the start and stop is used from the HMI. But like I say, the HMI isn't latching these things on, so I'm not saying to the HMI, you toggle the bit and you switch that bit on. I'm not telling the HMI to do that. That has to be done through the PLC. At the end of the day, HMI is a human-machine interface. It's just something that the human gets interface with the machine with. A PLC is the controller itself, so we use the PLC for control. So that's it for this video. What we'll do is we'll film a few more videos and we'll release these steadily over the next couple of weeks, and what we'll do is we'll have a look again at this in a little bit more in detail about CODESYS HMI development. I'll see you on the next video. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. I'll see you again later, guys.